the top. Okay. Everybody can see, thumbs up. We're good. You can see the screen. Awesome. Okay. So another Toolbox Tuesday. Thank you everybody for being here. We send you all of our possible good wishes for this insane moment here that we're all working our way through. We really appreciate that you are here today. So let's get started. So here's our schedule for today. In a second, we're going to be watching a video that Anne wanted us to see called The Flight of the Geese. We'll get to that in a second. And sorry, I realize, Anne, we got these two bullets reversed. Welcome and agenda overview should have been first, but that's okay. Everything is, yeah. So after we watch The Flight of the Geese, we're going to be working briefly. Robert's going to be working briefly with Jorge and Kosh, going back to the strengths part. Then we're going to have a section where we talk about Stephanie Malia Krause's book, Making It, in small and large group settings. We have a section that we're calling Problems of Practice, which Anne will explain when we get to it, but it's going to be about its focus, the Problems of Practice focuses on the SIP form that you've begun to work with as you start to develop your school impact project. And then we have a break. And then we have Joel with us again. You all met him last time. And the second half of today is really mostly going to be Joel presenting his deck on the data dashboard. And he'll be explaining that as we go. And then we'll do a round robin at the very end. There's a couple of other things also as well. Okay, so we're going to go here to this. Anne, you want to say a quick word here?
Yes. You know, I think this whole video is really old. And
back
Josh
when mimeographs were still in the classroom, if you remember that technology, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we will acknowledge that. But I would like to say that even if it's old, there is a universal message for leaders and for those who are leaders in schools and in community, that we can't do it all alone. And I think that's the really important part. This talks about the flight of the geese and why birds fly in this kind of formation. When we look at teamwork and leadership and how there's efficacy in the things when we do them together, and how we all recognize success once we get to our destination. So I wanted you to think about this and the lessons that it talks about in terms of you as a school leader, in terms of you as a participant in investing in human capital, you as a member of a community and family. So let's run it, and then we'll just do a little real quick what I got from it at the very end.
Okay, here comes.
Okay,
So
even
Anne,
if, go ahead.
I'll go first.
Okay.
So it's funny, I didn't think about this when I first saw this film, but for most of my adult life, I've been a long distance rider, not motorbikes, but touring bikes. And I was always a lone rider. I preferred riding alone. And then I remember very clearly, I was living in Iowa and going to University of Iowa at the time. The first time I ever rode in what's called a peloton, which is a group of riders. And it was a stunning experience to be in that V formation and to be moving together. And every couple of minutes, people would rotate to the front and the people would drop off to the back. So, I actually respond to that idea, that there's something very special about being in a situation like that. That's what that video makes me think about.
Thank you. Okay. I know you were all, when I watched it for the very first time, and I was so excited. I was giving these little V formation pins to all my teachers, because I was so excited. I shared it with them. We would talk about it. But, again, there are so many lessons. What resonated with some of you? Jillian? It's just that you're on my screen, so.
Hey, that's fair. I hid self-view, so I'm not on anyone's screen. So hopefully my face looks all right. Yeah, I think the thing that was really resonating with me when I watched that video is knowing that I have a team to be flying with and countering that with the feelings that I feel a lot right now. This is so hard. We're in this all alone. I'm in this alone. Every day feels like a battle, but I actually do have a really wonderful team that I love working with. And I think that one of the things that we are learning to do, and videos like this kind of help me better understand the value in continuing to work at, is taking turns being in a more of a leadership role. Obviously we take our guidance from our principals and they are our point people, but there are times, I think, especially right now, where they need help too, and we can step up and be there and available in different ways. And it's just an important thing to remember that you get to take a turn in the back and you get to take a turn at the front. And if you need to identify for yourself that you need a turn at the back, I think that that's something that we can be doing right now.
And it's okay.
Jillian, that was the lesson that I learned as a biker, is that for all that time that I was riding alone, I was fighting the winds. And if you've ever lived in the Midwest, the winds are horrendous when you're a biker. And then that first time in the peloton, I realized what was happening was that the blocking of those headwinds made it possible for me to have a different experience as a biker. So
well,
I hear you.
So as a swimmer, there's lane drag. It's a real thing. And if you watch the Olympics, you'll see that. And so I think it's really interesting that there are so many other spaces in our lives where we know that it is just as beneficial truly to fall in line and follow as it is to lead. I just think that remembering the rotation and the how essential that is was a good reminder from the video.
Yeah. Okay, and the other person on my screen is Jorge. So what resonated with you as part of this?
I think what resonated with me was the idea of putting time and effort in actually building relationships. I'm pretty sure why they were able to, form a V and stay in a V and have all these protocols in place is because they not only understood the reason for them, but they probably had a good relationship with each other. I mean, that's something that I think that if, we work on our relationships, that's a good foundation for everything else. So that's what came up in my mind as I watched this video. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Real quick, we'll take one more.
I'll go, Anne. It's Amy. I don't know if I'm on your screen or not, but yeah, it really, and I've seen this before, right? And each time you watch it, it depends on what's happening in your life and how it connects to you. But I really, and this is the first time I noticed it, is that quack, where the others are quacking to the person in front. And for me, that's really just kind of standing out now, because sometimes we work so hard and we just need that little bit of encouragement. We just, I swear, I think this is the first time this past month that I said, I think I'm going to find me a new job, I need a whole new career. And you had those people encouraging, no, it's just a tough time, or people are dealing with different things. And so you kind of sometimes need that encouragement, no matter who you are and how much experience you have. It's 20 something years and I still need that little quacking from behind sometimes. And I don't want to admit it sometimes that I need that little encouragement, but it's true. We're human. We just kind of need that little push sometimes that we can do it.
Amy, when you're a biker, the equivalent to the quack is what the person at the front puts their arm down and does a quick flick of the finger. And I never realized how significant that gesture is. But what it says is, I'm gassed. I'm completely gassed. Somebody has to move to the front and I need to move to the back because I've been working really hard. So I totally hear you on that. Absolutely.
So part of this whole thing was really to start to have each of you think about the different lessons that the video brings up. And as Amy said, every time you watch it, it depends on where you are, you pick something else up. And one of the things, we want to be sure that you think about that as a cohort, you really are looking at working together as a team. Reach out to each other. If you don't understand something, call a buddy, share the leadership in terms of working together and coming up with using each other's strengths to actually get through these times, as well as when you build your relationship with each other, to ask questions about other things. You're not alone. You're never going to be alone. And if you want to continue in administration, there's got to be a lot of honking. That means you're going to have a lot of people in different areas that are going to help you. So thank you so much for watching this old, mimeograph type of video, but I couldn't find anything else. So just to kind of say, if anybody finds anything else, shoot it over to us. But there's a really important message in here. And watching it over and over again, you continue to see how it's relevant in our journey. So thank you.
And I was going to text you on the side and tell you I'm going to send you a more updated link.
Very good.
Thank you.
Send it to us.
Send it on.
We'll put the nice one up on the site. Okay.
Okay. We're going to move now to Robert. So Robert, take it away. This is your strength section.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. And one of the important things about investing in strengths is our ability to revisit it as much as possible.
I just had a question, and this may be me jumping the gun. If I am, I apologize, and just
let me mute Serena.
Put me back in my place. So I know we're going through her visits and things, which is great, awesome, and I'm excited for both of them to be able to have this more.
There you go. Okay.
There you go. I think it's been something that we want to make sure that we're bringing up time and time again so that we can remember how important these strengths are. So what I'd like to do now is for Kash and Jorge to just do a 1.5 minute or minute introduction of themselves based on their strengths, having done the one-to-one session with me. Rather than me introducing you, I'd like you to quickly introduce yourself. But I do want to point out very quickly, if you look at them, they're on the 2 lines together, is that if I were looking at projects, there would definitely be times when I would put Jorge and Kash together. And then there would be times when I would split them up to be on 2 different teams because they are so similar. I mean, you saw the film last 2 weeks ago, the trillions of chances having somebody with the same strengths. Look at these 2. It's very, very rare that you would find 2 people that would have those many strengths similar to each other. Even though they're not in the same order, it makes up who they are. So Jorge, if you don't mind, could you do a quick, I'm Jorge, and just tell us a little bit more about yourself through your strengths.
Sure. I'm Jorge, and I tend to be someone that likes to look at a situation. I can quickly issue spot or find patterns. I think that says something about my first strength, strategic. I enjoy thinking and processing and reflecting, and oftentimes I need a lot of time to let it marinate with me. And so that goes to my intellection. And I also tend to collect information and data and ideas, whether it be from research or looking to other people. And I think I do that because I want to make sure that, I'm thoughtful in what I'm going to suggest or what I'm going to recommend or decide. I also, when I'm thinking about something, like processing it and collecting information about something, I tend to anticipate what's going to happen, anticipate the details or the consequences. Oftentimes I use the phrases like this could lead to a slippery slope, because I'm always thinking about like how this is going to impact the future or other people in similar different situations. And I think I also, my last one as I like to form relationships. So like take this cohort, for example. When I do speak, it's not that much. I'm here in a new group, and the way I naturally make relationships is I've always just been a part of the group and I listen and observe. And that's how I've always been. And I want it to happen naturally. So you'll be hearing more from me, but it's just going to take some time. So there you go.
That's
Thanks,
awesome,
Jorge. Could you do one thing for me very quickly? And Kosh, I want you to be ready. Jorge, when we talked about your input strength and what you're learning a little bit more about your input strength, could you share that with us? And Kosh, if you feel the desire to give a thumbs up, go ahead and do that if it resonates with you. This is just an experiment.
So I notice like people that know me well know that I tend to do this where I sometimes can come across as though I'm interrogating them. I will like ask a series of questions, and it's because there's something that I need or a piece of information, and I tend to do that. Like I had a friend who was told that they were a close contact, and I just quickly went through like a laundry list of questions because I wanted to know the procedure and the protocol and the rationale behind it. And the reason why she didn't say like, why are you interrogating me, is because we've known each other for so many years and she knew what I was getting at. So one thing that I have to work on is, especially with new people, I should probably like preface it. Like I'm gonna ask a couple of questions, and this is why I'm gonna do that, just so that I don't, turn them off.
Kosh, did that resonate at all with you? Because you have the input strength as well.
It resonated because I know Jorge really well. Because Jorge and I used to work together. It's probably our similarities here, probably also another reason why we were probably naturally drawn together as friends. But I don't know if I approach the input strategy in the same way. I think it manifests a little bit different, maybe in mine. Yeah, I can identify with what he's saying.
So tell us a little bit more about you, Kosh, through your strengths.
Yeah, definitely. It made sense when I looked at it. When I was in grad school, I was naturally drawn to like logic models and implementation models. And I had a professor who once said that a good idea is not complete unless an implementation is well thought out. And that's why I would always get frustrated when I'd hear like people will say things like, well, that person's an ideas man, but they're not good at implementation. And to me, like, I think they're inextricably linked, because that's just how my brain's going to always, like, it's similar to what Jorge said too about like running through like the possibilities and the scenarios. And I tend to do that constantly in my head. I think this is both a good thing, but it can also be a terrible thing. And I have to like check myself, because it can be kind of all consuming. And like, if it's not checked, it's almost like a type of neuroses, because like you're constantly overplaying scenarios and in your head, and that could be exhausting as well. So that's sometimes like, that's what I think happens a lot, like internally. I think it's more like introspective for me. And so even with the input stuff, like I'll ask questions, but I think Jorge identify with it because I want to ask a lot of those questions. Jorge's better at actually asking them, I think, than I am. So I think that's why it manifests in that way for him. And for me, I'm more thinking about those questions, and I might like take time before I ask them all, or things like that, because I think I'm naturally a little bit more introspective and shy.
Good. Well, that as a strengths coach, it would be interesting to work with the two of you together to compare and contrast on that input strength. But I think for both of you, you're deeply invested in detail that will better solve a problem or reach a better solution. And there's others like you in the group that's the same. Ken with his analytical strength, very, very similar. So thank you guys. Appreciate you doing that. And over back to you there, Josh.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so this next section is about Stephanie Malia Krause's book, Making It. And we're going to do a small group activity in which we essentially divide you up into two groups, and we're going to have you spend a few minutes talking about, and let me fall on my sword here to everybody. I made a mistake here. When we finished our last session, I said read chapter 1, but I forgot that she organized it under part 1 and chapter 1. So in my subsequent email to you about today, I said read all of part 1, and forgetting that that's all the way through, 50 pages and all of that. So be that as it may, I apologize for that. But we will take whatever you have to say about however far you've gotten in it into Stephanie Malia's book right now. So, but most importantly, we want you to talk about, and Robert and Anne are going to be in your small groups with you, what jumped out at you from her book, Making It, so far. And we also want you to start thinking about even this early questions that you might want to ask her when we meet with her on November 2nd. She will be joining us for the majority of that session on November 2nd on Tuesday. And she's also agreed, which is really cool, to do a series of small group discussions, which I'm going to arrange with you later on, where it's going to be like 3, 3, and 4. We'll figure out a date and we'll put a meeting together, and she'll drop in and spend some time with you talking about your school impact project and the work that you're doing. But for today, we're just going to get into groups, and we're going to talk about what it is that jumped out at you so far. So let me go ahead and stop sharing here, and then I'm going to actually do my little thing. This will take me a minute. Hi, Serena. Glad you could join us. Okay, give me a second here. Okay.
So we're going to ask one person in each group to kind of take notes and report out at the very end. So when we get in our groups, let's just see who is willing to kind of jot some notes down. Thanks, Jillian. I need that.
Okay, I have the groups arranged, and I'm going to open the rooms, and off you go to your groups. And Joel, I'm actually having you join a group as well. Okay, you should see it on your screen now. Serena, you should have a group to join as well. You okay? Hey, Ken, are you there, Ken?
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, Jess. Hang on one sec. I think Ken got kicked out of his small group. Let me figure out what's going on here. Oh, there he goes. Okay, Ken went to his small group. Hi. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. It's just us two for now. We can actually keep it this way. Do you want to go into one of the small groups? They're talking about making it just what jumped out so far.
Oh, okay.
Or you and I can talk about it here because I'm sitting here all alone.
Yeah, that's fine. It's up to you, whatever you want. I'm just trying to see how can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfectly.
Oh, okay, good. I just want to see if I can get my settings to, it's on my phone. It sucks. The spectrum is down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to, like my Wi-Fi is working and everything is working, but the service. So
Yeah.
I'm using my cellular, you know?
Yep, understood.
But I'm trying to see how I can get my AirPods to work instead of the phone so I can hear you better.
Okay. Sometimes I found AirPods can be problematic with Zoom. I often get weird things happening. Wait, let me find out
Really?
what's going on. Yeah,
Let me
that's
check my
why
settings.
I
Right?
use,
The plug-in ones.
yeah. Yeah, I stopped using AirPods altogether with Zoom. And did you get kicked out?
Yeah, so they're
This
on their
works
own.
perfect.
Okay, wait, let me reassign you. And who was in your room with you?
Two. So that was Jillian.
Okay. Room 2, right?
Yes.
Okay, you should be able to go back in. There she goes. Okay. So how are you doing? Crazy. Yeah. Oh, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, yeah, my AirPods work better now. Thank you. So yeah,
Okay.
it's crazy. How are you doing? You guys are lucky you're not in the schools.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you for sure. I have conversations every day, and I'm hearing it in every possible way. What's going on? Like, what's for you? What is the chief? What are the number one and number two things that are really a challenge right now?
Right now, I just finished Sizzle year 1. So this is my first real year as a vice principal. So I was always at Nanakuli Elementary. Then I went up as the cow at NHIS, and then I was interning at Waianae High School, and now I'm back at Nanakuli L.
Yeah.
And so system-wise and community-wise, and it was really easy for me to adapt. I love the school. I fit right in. I created a lot of the systems that still work at the school. So that feels great. The annoying part for me is I'm finishing up my last 2 Sizzle requirements for grad school. And so I graduate in December. So I am taking 2 3-credit course classes. And I literally did it in a year and a half. So last year I took 7 courses. This year I'm doing 2 and I finish in December, but plus this class, it's like 3 classes. And I have a 5-year-old and a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
And school is just nuts. So my principal is getting ready to retire. So she's giving everything to me to get ready for principalship. So I'm just trying to juggle everything. I really just don't have any time for myself. Like last night I was on Zoom till 7 o'clock with my UH class. And then my research class is on Thursday. And then on Wednesday we have vice principal meetings. And on Tuesdays we have this. So I don't have any time, and I'm to really decompress from the day, because it's just constant work, and it's not making me happy.
Right. Is Lisa, like, it doesn't work automatically that you would assume the principalship, right, at Nanakuli Elementary, right? But she's like, what is it that she's doing with you to?
She wants to prepare me for principalship in general,
Okay.
like period. And she's looking to retire in a couple of years. And
Hmm.
I've been working with Lisa since she arrived at the school as a principal. So she's always looked to me as that like right-hand man and second person in charge. So that was just her way of mentoring.
Yeah.
She's really great. She's very supportive. She's pushes my practice and also gives me more support than ever. So like if I needed to be like, I can't do this, she'd be like, I'll take it completely.
Yeah.
But what the most challenging for me is definitely not school. It's the extra work that I have to do for university and stuff like that.
Hmm. Okay. Right. Totally makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's just demanding when I'm finally done, and then work never ends, you know that. So
Yeah.
like I'm constantly doing email or writing papers or reading or till I go to sleep. And then
Yeah.
every day
Yeah. It's, I'm kind of in a parallel. I'm watching the clock here because we have a couple more things to do before Joel starts working on the data dashboard, but just sharing with you real quick that sometimes it's the arbitrary things in life that can be really painful to deal with. Like, I'm under contract to do this education work, and it's really Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday that I do that work, right? And then I work part-time. I've worked for 7 years as a specialist, as a sales specialist at Apple. And that part-time work was supposed to be 20 hours a week. And suddenly a couple of weeks ago, they changed their policy and said it needs to be 30 hours a week. And to me, 30 hours is practically a full-time employee. So I don't get the benefits of, accruing vacation, et cetera, et cetera. But even more painful is they never said anything to me. They never, said, we're changing this policy.
Right.
Here's something you got to think about. It's just like all of a sudden I download my schedule 2 weeks in advance, and all of a sudden there's 30 hours. And I'm just like, but wait, that's not a way to treat human beings.
that's terrible.
We're not cattle. You can't just like move us in some direction. So I hear you about that. And there's just a lot of things in people's lives right now that are mimicking that. There are
Right.
things that push people in ways that they didn't anticipate. And it's funny, just that we're talking about making it right now, the book, right? And, that's one of the very early things that you pick up from Stephanie Malia Krauss, is that this is what the world is going to be like. There will be very little that's predictable, and that you're constantly going to have to deal with these kinds of phenomenon in your life. And I'm 63, and I'm like, I kind of wish I could just be done with it, right? And sit at home and read. It's just that kind of thought that gets into your head, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And I think leadership is like that. It's always unknown.
Yeah.
Which is fine. And that's why we do this work. But it's just one of those right now, like I wish this course started in January, like just because the beginning of this, it's just so hard. And now I'm finally getting into the school stuff. And then once I graduate in December, it's going to be cake. But I just the timing of this course is bad.
Yeah.
Because of the whole pandemic. It's not out of it. No one's knew this was going to happen.
Yeah. Well, we want you. We support you. Robert is a remarkable person and a coach. I'm so glad that worked out the way that it did. And so hang in there. There's lots of flexibility. I know that might not come across from Anne, but there is lots of flexibility in this thing. And so
that's good.
Flex when you need to flex, but come January, then things will lighten up a little bit. So yeah, just my heart goes out to you for the insanity of this particular moment and all that.
Yeah.
Trying to hear everything you're saying about what your circumstances are. So, okay, I'm gonna let me see if I need to. Let me just check on the slide deck here and make sure that we're in the right place. Okay.
That's cool. You work for Apple. You must get, do you get really awesome stuff?
Indeed. We have a 25% discount on all products. And then every 3 years, we get what's called an extra bonus discount. So they tack on like, $500 for whatever it is that you want to buy. It can be a little stressful because if you make a bad decision, you have to wait 3 more years. So I bought like a 12.9-inch iPad Pro and then hated it from the very beginning. It was just so bulky and all that. So I had to wait 3 years, but I finally got the new iMac Pro, the iMac 24-inch, and I'm so stoked with it. It's so fast. So I made a good decision the second time around.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
If,
that's awesome.
friends and family discount, if you ever need to get an Apple product, you just dial me up. It's pretty easy to get that discount for you. It's about 15%.
cool.
So yeah,
I will. We love Apple here.
good. Okay. I think we're all back, right? Okay, so let me, and so in the interests of time, because we're at 4:47, I think we have to go straight to problems of practice at this point. So let me share.
I just want to say, I think the groups did a wonderful job of discussing the book. So we can probably skip that whole part about sharing back. They did a
Okay.
good job.
Good. We'll definitely build that into the schedule for the 19th. For
Mhm.
sure. We'll make sure that we've got that. Okay. So stand by. Let me go into present mode here. Okay. So Anne, this is your section. Take it away.
Okay, so we're gonna go through a problems of practice protocol. Now, some of you may know it as the tuning protocol, but what we're gonna do here is we're gonna take a problem that that somebody has. We're just gonna do one round, and in terms of the SIP development, so we're gonna help that one person think about how to resolve that question that they have about the SIP development, a section or need clarification on something. So the way it's going to work is that one person will volunteer to share something that's a major brain block for them in the SIP. Others can ask clarifying questions. And then the person steps back, the one with the problem, and all the others talk about this situation, what they've done, some ideas, and the sharer will just take some notes. And then after that discussion ends in 2 minutes, the sharer says, here's what I heard. Thank you so much for giving me these ideas. And then we're off. Okay, so the idea is to help clarify some of the sections that we're going to, introduce you to the problems of practice, and get you to think about how this can be used as a school leader when you're working with your faculty, staff, or each other. Okay, hopefully that'll help us get through it. And remember, it could be messy. Don't worry about it being perfect. It's just about getting through the protocol of getting to know each other and helping each other. Okay.
And I'm going to use the same groups since you were all in that group, and Robert and you're facilitating each of the 2 groups, right? So I'm going to go ahead and reopen the rooms again, and you can join the groups, and Jess, I'll assign you in just a sec. Okay. Actually, let me do that right now. Okay, here we go.
Aye.
Hey. You hear me okay?
Yeah.
Meeting is recording, so we have to be careful what we say here.
Oh, I heard that when I came in. Got it.
Okay. They're in
making sure.
small groups right now.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah, so what they're doing is a problem of practice related to the form that they are using to develop their school impact project. Did we share that with you?
No.
Oh, I need to do that. Robert's idea originally, and then we modified it for our uses, and then got excited enough about it that we actually put the words copyright at the top. So it's a form that you fill out, but is we click the edit button so that they can keep going back in and editing it. So it's got 10 sections, and as you work through the 10 sections, it helps you to figure out what your school impact project is going to be. And so right now they're doing a problem of practice. So, one person presents, then there's questions of clarification, and then everybody gets to comment, and then the presenter gets to come back and say a comment at the end. And it relates to potential brain blocks that might happen while you're working your way through the form. And so we're just doing one person, so 2 groups of 5 in each group. And so we just do one person to give them a flavor for it. I'm not sure how many of them have been through a tuning protocol. Anyway, that's what's going on right now.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I spoke to Ken. He busted out the big smile. I thought you said that he was your coach, and then we had a good laugh because he's not that old.
No.
Yeah,
He was on my soccer team. He was ahead of me at Punahou, but he was like the best goalie in the Kaneohe ASO soccer league because he was huge.
Yeah.
He was just a huge individual, and he
Yeah.
wore like this little like soft helmet, and he played goalie, and he was like the best goalie in the league. And he played on my team one year, and I remember we had one match where we kicked the ball off to start,
Yeah.
and our coach had him come up, and he just like took the opening tap and kicked it and scored on the other team. Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny stuff.
That was he
Football player, I believe.
Huh?
He was a football player at Punahou.
So you were classmates?
No, he was a year ahead of me. He was class of 93, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Class of 94. Like I was thinking he might have even been your player when you coached intermediate at Punahou.
Wow. Well,
Because
doesn't
one of
remember
my
me.
classmates had you as a coach at Punahou, Austin Ching.
Oh, I
And he
remember
wore
Austin.
the-
Yeah.
He wore the pin that
Yeah.
said, "I went one-on-one with Brandon Ito and survived."
Oh my God, that's one of my
Because
best
Brandon Ito
stories.
was the best
All-state center.
all-state center and wrestler,
Yes.
champion wrestler too, I believe.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Thank you for reminding me of that. That
And
was one
I
of
remember he wore the pin. You had told me about it. He wore the pin to class.
that was one of my best ideas. I actually tracked down a person in town who made those pins, and then we had Brandon come down. Oh, wait. Okay,
You better
sorry,
go.
getting a message from Robert. I had Brandon come down, and they were all facing me, and I said, we're going to do something special today, and he was behind them. And I said, you guys are going to get to go one-on-one with Brandon Ito today. And then I heard him laugh, and they all turned around, and their eyes were just like, oh my God. But he did it perfectly. He gave each one of them, a hard blow, but he let them like move him out of the block. It was amazing. And then when we had our team dinner at the end, that's when I gave them their pins, which were huge. There were these big, huge.
Yeah, they were huge because it
Yeah.
had a lot of words on there.
I went one-on-one with Brandon Ito. Oh my God, I totally forgot about that.
So
Wow.
I thought, I don't know, maybe I know Kenny played football at Punahou. I don't
Yeah.
recall whether he was
I'll have
whether
to
he
ask him.
played offense or defense or whether he played at that time. But, you know, Austin Ching was in my class. So I don't know
Yeah.
whether that was my 7th grade year or my 8th grade year, but
Yeah.
it was one of those two.
Okay, let me stand by. I'm waiting for Robert and Ann to give me the signal to bring them back. We're kind of running a few minutes late. Who isn't?
But what group work doesn't run a few minutes late?
Indeed.
Right.
Indeed.
It was interesting at Schools of the Future, they were noting the importance of everybody finishing on time because they got a lot of comments, I guess, last year about people who were running over, and attendees were I guess, a little miffed
Yeah.
because they didn't want to leave because they didn't want to be rude, but yet they
Yeah.
wound up being late for their next sessions or something. So
And I think on the platform was cutting them off.
yeah, and this year they've got the Zoom, so it's going to be much better.
Yeah. It's good that Joel is in one of the small groups, so it's not like he's sitting outside the door waiting to get in. He's participating.
So he's already in the mix.
Yeah, he joined at 4.
Cool.
Okay, giving him 1 minute. So funny how one of my major stresses in all of this was learning how to do the room breakouts in Zoom. And now I think I kind of on the road to figuring this thing out.
There's the thing for me is I know where all the buttons are and I know everything to do. It's just the marionette dance in the moment.
Yeah.
Is a little bit difficult for me because I'm not nimble
Yeah.
with it. Even though I know where everything is, I get flustered.
Yeah. Remember when Kira was doing like 250 people in Kanikapu? Yeah.
For sure.
Evan Beachy, as I live and breathe.
Yes.
How are you, sir?
Hey, Ken, Evan is here. We were talking about you. Apparently you were a hell of a goalie.
Proud MVP goalkeeper of the Kaneohe soccer leagues. Like
Apparently scored a
for a
goal on the
generation.
kickoff, right?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Right. When I played on your team, we had one play where we kicked the ball back to you, and you went and kicked it and actually scored on the opening kickoff one time.
Okay, let me share my screen real quick, back to where we were. Okay, so Anne and Robert, at this point, do you want to cover the last couple bullets here and then we have to head towards our break because we have Joel in the queue. Yep.
So in our group, Ken was able to share, one of those issues that he's dealing with in his SIP. And the rest of the team actually discussed some options and things that they knew about. And then, so I'm going to ask Ken how he felt about that protocol, if it helped. Ken?
I think I appreciated that protocol. It was directed at the group was talking to the group. It wasn't talking to me. So I didn't have to feel that pressure of trying to, give responses and try and defend my ideas. It was more of a collaborative approach, and I think it's something that we can give me some ideas to move forward.
Thank you. And I said this was a first initial practice for the problems of practice protocol, and we're going to give other opportunities to utilize this in other ways as well. So thank you to the team. How about you, Robert?
Well, it was a great conversation. I think we'd still be going. Amy was amazing at setting the tone for the conversation, which allowed other people to give input. And so maybe Amy, just real quick, your reflection of the session and what it did for you and what you think it might have done for the others in the group.
Okay, I apologize if you hear a screaming child in the background. That is not me doing that. Sorry, my grandson's going crazy in the background right now. But I appreciated hearing what people had to say, because it sometimes makes you think about whether or not you clarified exactly your purpose in the project. So that was helpful too, because we want to make sure that it's focused and that we're being intentional about it. So the feedback was rather helpful.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so we're going to move on here. So before we go to break, I actually want to share something with everybody. This is really, really cool. So I'm going to share a different screen here. And so Serena has completed her first blog. And it's actually a really cool story. When I did my podcast interview with Serena way back, almost a year ago, we talked about during that interview her mantra that she had been saying in her mind over and over again. It had been really a guiding North Star for her. And then she went through a process of developing a new mantra, which is at the very bottom of the screen here. If you look at her blog, look to the past to inform the future. So I just wanted to point out to everybody that it's really neat that she, I believe, is first out of the gate. Is there anybody who's actually that I wasn't aware of that had already done a blog already, their first blog? Oh, Amy, awesome. I will go and click on your link, which is.
I did too, but feel free, Josh, not to share it. Do not bring it up today.
No, I believe in equity, Josh. I believe in equity.
So we got to honk for you too, okay? We're going to honk.
It's not as pretty as Serena's at all. So please feel free not to share it.
Yeah, but I'll definitely go in and take a look, Amy. Thank you. I appreciate that. So everybody, we are sort of tracking in the direction of producing your first blog. And I just thought that it'd be really neat to show everybody Serena's here as kind of an example of how she's using her current thinking about about the development of her new mantra, and just imagining, Serena, as I was reading it, what it would be like for your school community, your greater school community, to read this, and that if I were a faculty member or a parent or even a student, that I would really appreciate knowing a little bit more about you through the words that you've written here. So just wanted to make everybody aware of that. Again, let me come back out. Just give me 1 second so I can.
Hey, Josh,
yeah, go ahead.
Very
Robert.
quickly, I've been traveling a bit,
Yep.
and I pass by this sign every time I go to catch my United flight. And wherever I'm going, it absolutely inspires me because it's the same thing. And I had to take a photo of it, and it's just a spectacular thing to remind us about why we're here.
That's awesome. Thank you, Robert. Let me share my screen again, just so that everybody knows where this is happening. So again, on our platform, on the left-hand side, the menu that is topics. And here's, Joel's going to get into the data dashboard in a few minutes here. But at the very top, when you click on the topic that is IHC cohort participant blog sites, all of your blog sites are now linked here. So if you want to see what other people are doing, this is the one-stop shop where you can go to find all of their links. You don't have to remember them or even bookmark them, right? So that's great. Okay, so we are going to take a short break. I think we're doing okay. We're at 5:09. So, and I think Robert will take just 5 minutes for a bio break. And then Joel, you're pretty much going to have the rest of the time with us today. We'll shorten the couple of announcements that we were going to make at the end to just, yeah, go ahead, Ann.
I have a technical problem with one of the ECs getting on. So
okay.
I need,
Who is it? Just let me know and I'll text them.
It's Lindsay Ball. So
Got
if you could send it to him. He said he can't, when he link, it asks for a password and whatever, and he can't seem to get in. So if you could resend him. He's using the link that you originally sent him.
Got it. If you could just text him and tell him to look at his email inbox in a moment, I'll do that during the break. Okay, we're on break, everybody, 5 minutes, and then we'll be back. Hey, Joel. No, good. Okay.
You want to give me sharing access and I'll put my.
Indeed. Okay, done. Okay, one more minute and then we'll have people begin to come back. Lindsay Ann has joined us. Melissa Spejans is also, I believe, I haven't seen her come in yet, but she texted for the code. Okay, everybody, if you can hear me out there, we're gonna come back here. Let's give everybody a minute to come back on screen again. Okay, awesome. Okay, so if you notice some unfamiliar faces here, one of our executive coaches is joining us, Lindsay Ball, retired complex area superintendent for the Canoe Complex. And also we have my nephew, Evan Beachy, who works in strategy and transformation for Kamehameha Schools. And maybe possibly in a minute or two, Melissa Spejans, who's the principal, Serena's principal at Waimea Canyon Middle School. And I'll keep an eye out to see if anybody else comes. So Joel, we're gonna have you reintroduce yourself and you are ready to roll.
Great. Good afternoon, everybody, or good evening. It's nice to see you all. It was really good to be part of those the group conversations. It actually gave me some ideas for some things to share tonight. So if you didn't see me last time we met, my name is Joel Rabin, and I live in Sacramento, California, and I've been working with Anne for about a year or two now on some data and reporting projects and building dashboards with her to help her share her story at Nana Kuluwai and it's grown from there. I spent about 20 years working in school districts here in California. One of my districts had 70,000 students, another had 80,000, and most recently I was in a district with about 15,000. And I spent my career working in data and reporting and accountability and strategic planning. And just before the pandemic, I decided to leave my full-time job and start my own business. And so now I work with schools as small as a few hundred students, the Hawaii Department of Education, right, with hundreds of thousands, and lots of districts in between. So my passion is helping people use data to tell stories. And Anne and Robert and Josh invited me to come be a part of IHC and help support all of you with your projects this year. And my role is going to be to help you tell your story. It's kind of a different version of the story you'll tell through your blogs. I'm going to help you tell your story through a data dashboard. And tonight I'm going to spend some time talking to you about data and dashboards. Sound good? Okay, so one thing I definitely need is for you all to stop me once in a while and ask a question. I'll pause and drink some water, but the last thing we need is for me to talk for the whole time. I did create an opportunity for an activity or two, but what I wanted to do was just take some time talking to you about data and helping you understand kind of a big picture perspective of data and data practices and reporting practices. And really what it's all about is helping you prepare to do your dashboards. In our breakout room a few minutes ago, I think Ken was talking about his project and Jillian asked one succinct question, which was what was on my mind. And it's a perfect question for what data is all about in K-12, which is what's your objective? You know, what do you hope to accomplish with your project? And I think that simple question will help you think about not only your project, but how you can tell that story over the next year for your project. So I'm going to talk to you about data for a little while, and then we'll get to the dashboard. We're going to be doing a dashboard for this whole project, the whole program of IHC, and then each of you will have your own data dashboards. A couple of pages, nothing too complex. And at the very end of this, what you'll hear is you'll hear me tell you, I'm available to support you anytime you need. If you need help with graphics, if you need help with data analysis, I'm going to be here to help each of you in any way that you need with that. And in my slide presentation, in a couple places, I have little blue icons that's to help me remember a story that I want to share. I like metaphors and stories. I think it's a nice way to help us all learn. So I'm going to use the metaphor like a bakery, and I'm going to share with you today what my bakery looks like and how my bakery works. You all know what a muffin is. You've all eaten a muffin at some point in your life, but maybe you haven't made one before. And I also know that some of you have. Some of you might already be chefs. So I'm going to be talking about data and kind of pull the curtains back on how data geeks like me to do data and reports. But I don't want to assume that none of you have already done work with data. You may have taken graduate classes, or some of you may have done theses already. So what I'm going to do is show you what my kitchen looks like tonight. And some of you, like I said, have already seen a kitchen before. And for some of you, you've only tasted the muffin, and maybe this will be helpful. So most important thing I want you to know, and I can see and hear the passion in your voices when I was in the breakout groups today and when I was here last time. We all know it's not about data. It's not about technology. It's not about curriculum. It's about kids, and it's about the teachers that work with the students. So although I've spent 20 years in data and technology, I'm always looking at how is this going to be in service of the important work that happens, which is kids with the adults on campus. So your work with students is much more important than some test result. For me, the test result should inform your work. Hopefully you've thought about data before and why you need data in schools. And I wanted to bring some specific examples for you about why we need data. So if you work at a middle school or a high school, you absolutely should be using data to pick classes for students to schedule them. There's a high school here in my community, and before I came to the district and started implementing data programs, they would schedule students in a class, and if the student didn't do well at the end of the year, they would just reschedule the student in that same math class without looking at the data and trying to understand why. And one of the things that we did with some case studies and some data analysis, we found that there was a student that got, I think, a B- in an algebra class. They made him retake the class. The next year he got a D because he was so bored. And then they made him retake the class of third year. So the student had behavior problems, low achievement, not because the student couldn't do algebra. So using data for scheduling is critical, and having assessment results and other data to look at can really be helpful. So we need data for helping our students to struggle when they struggle to read, for attendance issues, looking at issues of maybe where suspensions and behavior issues are happening on campus. We want to inform parents how their children are doing, and we want to make sure the students know also about how they're doing in school. And then when you get into the high school, obviously we can be using data for things like grades and college access and college readiness. So those are all the kinds of things that you probably in your role as a teacher, vice principal, parent, you see data. And then kind of below the line, there's a lot that's happening at your school district or in your complex areas where they need data. We need data to identify professional learning needs for our staff. We need data to determine how many teachers we might need to hire next year, or if we need to move teachers. You have to evaluate programs, make budget decisions. And finally, kind of in a big picture, you need to know maybe where you need to either grow a school by adding a building or maybe build a new school. So data shows up, and the work that I did, data shows up in K-12 education everywhere, all the time, all year long. I spent a lot of time talking with people over the years where they would say something like, I don't need tests, I know my students. We don't need more testing, we don't need more data, we just need more time with the kids. And I'm not an advocate for testing more and more and more, but we certainly do need tests. And so some examples that I think are important for us all to kind of think about and acknowledge. Can you imagine driving your car if you didn't have the data right in front of you? It didn't have, you know, your gas, your speed, and other things. Or can you imagine if our doctors didn't have the ability to do a blood test? And then more recent, COVID testing. The COVID tests, there's a rapid test, it's not as accurate as we'd like, but the normal COVID test takes a few days. By the time you take the test and get the results, people could have been out there with COVID and not know it. So the best kind of test is a test or an assessment where you're going to get that information immediately. I wrote this when I prepared the presentation a week or two ago, but I said, imagine if schools receive test results immediately when you finish the exam, right? Your annual state tests, they show up in at your school, usually a few weeks after the next school year started. And no joke, today in the mail, I got a letter from my daughter's school telling me how she did on a test last spring. So just today, I got the letter in the mail about how my daughter did a year ago. So having good data and getting good data in a timely manner, I think is really important. So when you think about your projects, you need to think about what data you might have in the spring that could help you kind of evaluate the impact of your project. So Ken, we were talking about Ken's project, and there's I think what I understood to be a school farm and some community engagement issues. We certainly want to base the dashboard or base the results of your program on something where the data wouldn't be available next spring. So if any of you are thinking about doing something academic and we're thinking of using the state assessment as an indicator, you just need to know you wouldn't even have those results by the time your project would be done. So having timely results is pretty important. A lot of times we think about the quality of something by the results. And I'm here to tell you that looking at the results alone aren't enough. Some people start out further ahead than others. So the students who go to Harvard started out with the highest SAT scores, the highest GPAs in high school, and so forth. So rather than looking at the outcome alone, it's really important to look at the inputs or the data at the beginning of something. So I don't think of Harvard as the best college in the country, but unfortunately, I don't really have a way of measuring what's the best college because we don't have any way of knowing what all the inputs were and all the outcomes were and to measure that difference. Harvard gets to, and places like Harvard get to talk about how great they are because of their outcomes, because of their endowments, or because of their students' graduation rate, or because of their outcomes for their students. But I think there's other ways we can look at success and excellence. I'm gonna go quickly on the next few slides. I think this is probably stuff that you already know, but I just wanted to make sure that I covered it. There's qualitative and quantitative data. You can get a doctorate degree and not really look at numbers at all. You can do it all by doing interviews and focus groups and observations. So qualitative data is just as valid as quantitative data, and you can use either in your dashboard. I mentioned earlier that there's different kinds of data. There's the inputs and there's the outcome data. And then something that's also really important is the process data. So one of the classic things that I got asked to help with is evaluating like an after school program or summer school program. We can certainly look at the students who are in the summer school program, and we can look at why they got brought into summer school, and we can look at the outcomes afterwards. But something that's really important also is look at that process data. So a really easy process data to collect would be enrollment and participation and attendance. So if you just have a list of 100 students that were in summer school, it's probably a little more helpful to look at whether or not they were in attendance every day at summer school versus the ones that maybe were only there for half the time. So that process data is pretty critical. You need to understand, in order to understand your outcomes, you want to look at the inputs and the process data. And I put the little saxophone here. My daughter started playing the saxophone this year. She started high school. She wanted to join the marching band. So this summer we got her a saxophone tutor, and she got a saxophone and she practiced 2 or 3 times. And then the school year started, and the band teacher at school asked her in class one day, how long have you been playing? And she said, you know, a little while. And the band teacher somehow interpreted that to mean that she's been playing for 2 years or so, a few years. So she had an impression of how my daughter's was playing, how well she was playing based on 2 years, based on that idea that the input that she's been playing for 2 years versus knowing that she's only been playing for 2 months. And once she got the accurate input data, it changed her view about how well my daughter's performing. So if you just look at your students' outcome data, if you're just looking at your school's outcome data without knowing the inputs, you're doing yourself a disservice. And I know intuitively you all do this. You know, when I worked with Ann and Nana Kuliwai and I, working with some high poverty and high need students, we weren't trying to compare ourselves to the highest performing schools in the state of the country, but how are we growing? How are we improving and making that change over time? And so you need all 3 of these kinds of data. So let me pause for a second and just see if there's any questions.
Joel, do you mind if I ask a quick question here?
Yeah.
So I'm actually curious for you to maybe clarify what you really mean by like the process data and measuring engagement. What I mean by that is like, what if like, let's say your outcome is to increase, and it's got to be probably more specific than this, but increasing engagement in something, let's say. So when
Okay.
you say measure engagement, do you mean for process like measuring the engagement within the outcome, like the process, like the, or are you talking about like the participation rate of people in general? Like I guess I just need some clarification.
Sure. That's a great question. Thank you for asking. I think what I mean is, so let's say you wanted to create a community engagement team for your school, and that's your goal, and that's what you want to work on this year. The process data would be, how many meetings did you have between now and let's say April? Who attended those meetings? How many people attended? And even better would be if you had like Zoom video or quotes from people. Maybe you have some quotes at people at the beginning, where in the first meeting or two where they say, I'm not really sure why I'm here. I don't really trust this. I'm not really, I've been part of these meetings with parent teacher meetings and nothing ever happens. And then 6 months from now, you have some more data during that engagement where some of those same people are changing their tune about that. So it's everything like you were saying. It's the attendance, the number of people, it's how they're engaging, it's the conversations you're having. It's also the work that you're doing. It's describing your actions, right? A lot goes into the work to create any of your programs. So it's that we spent this much money on food. It's that we created these presentations. It's that we created a section in our library to host the meetings. It's all the description of all of your actions, really. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. That helps a lot.
Yeah. So in your dashboard, when I get to that later today, there's actually a section that I created in the template where you can describe the process, and you can put some of the process data, and that could be quantitative or qualitative again. Any other questions? All right. So here's going a little deeper into the idea of having inputs, process, and outcome analysis. One of the things that we often do, it often just kind of gets reported in newspapers, that the example I gave you about Harvard is just a status measure, right? They're just basically looking at the outcomes. Harvard's a great school. I think a more interesting or important way to look at data and analyze data would be look at 2 points in time. Well, how well did the students come in, and then what did they leave with? So if you work at a school where only 20% of the kids started 3rd grade being able to read, and by the end of the year, 60% did, that's a big change, right? That's a big change. And then if you have process data, then you can go even further and look and talk about impact. Most school leaders have to, at some point in their career, if you're a principal or a complex area superintendent, at some point you're going to have to stand up in front of somebody and tell them why they should spend money on something, why they should spend money on this curriculum, this professional learning, this reading program, whatever it is. Anne, is that right? Did you have to do that more than once? Yes. Okay. So you're going to have to tell somebody why they should spend $100,000 or $1 million on something. When you have a story with it that you can describe with this impact, where you can say, look, we did a pilot, here's what we did, here's the actions we took, and here's what happened, here's the outcome. When you can show that whole story from inputs through the process to the outcomes, and you can describe the impact of something, and maybe it wasn't the impact at your own school, but maybe it was the impact at a neighboring complex or even in a different state, that's a lot more believable than, I think we should spend $1 million because it sounds good on their website, right?
So Joel, one of the things that was an example of this is that we increased our teacher training and our parents and community. We worked on training on trauma-informed strategies. And what we started to see in that process was that the schools that had the higher numbers of trainings with their teachers and staff had the lowest number of incidents and suspensions, as the outcome. So I think part of it is being able to recognize that. And we also saw the schools that didn't do the training were way, outlying in the increasing numbers of suspensions and incident referrals. So using that data was really important, because when we started to share that with the schools, the principals of the ones who didn't do the training signed up for training. So it actually impacted their behavior, because they started to see what really was working, and what the impact would be.
It's a great example. So not only did they have the data at 3 different points in time and be able to show that participation led to a big reduction in student behaviors that you didn't want to see, but it was also able to use that to influence the people who hadn't participated to realize the importance of participating, right? So what I'm showing you and describing in this presentation are things that are probably intuitive. You're probably nodding along like, oh yeah, I've done that, or that makes sense, which is great. You probably all have experiences with this, but again, using the data to show the impact is one of the most powerful things you can do as a teacher, as a vice principal, in any of your roles. Okay, so what makes good data? So every day you open the newspaper or you listen to the news, and you're hearing information about our world. You're hearing information about COVID or about politics or even about sports and the economy. That's all information. It's not necessarily research or data. And I think some of the differences are some of the things that I've listed here for you. So these are the basic premises of what a researcher does. And if you're going to create your dashboard, and what I did with Anne and her team when we made her dashboard, Jessica, I don't know if you want to share and add in any of this, because you're a big part of the Nanakuli dashboard process. We tried to be systematic about this, right? We weren't just throwing up any piece of data that we wanted. We shared bad data. We shared some of the results weren't necessarily what we wanted to see, but they were part of the story. So I think as a researcher and as an educator here with your SIP project, it's important to try to follow some of these basic practices. Trying to prove something isn't helpful. Hiding data isn't helpful. Pretending that you don't have biases isn't helpful. It's okay to have biases, but share them and explain them to people. So these are just some basic kind of concepts that I wanted to share with you that distinguish research maybe from a newspaper article.
And I think one of the things that we talked about, Joel, was how do we, we just saw the video on the V formation of the geese. How do we honk to kind of encourage, right, the
Right.
work that needs to be done? And so one of the things we did was on the infographic dashboards, whenever we had data, we would put a star if that data was better than the year before, and we would put a plus sign if it actually met or exceeded the state. So, everybody was always looking, and it was motivational in a sense, where they said, wow, look, we got a star. That means we did better than last year. And that was really important. So data can be presented in ways that can provide that as well. Not just, we only went up 1%. Oh, there's nothing that shows that we got better, but you really can do that.
Thank you, Anne. So I pulled some data. I don't know if any of you, I'm assuming you're familiar with many of these schools. I'm not sure if you actually worked at any of these schools, but one way to look at the results again is status. And I pulled annual test data, and I looked at the percent of students meeting or exceeding ELA standards. And on the left is a list of schools that had some of the highest performance in the state, right? These are the public schools with some of the highest performance in the state. Well, that's one way to look at what's a great school. But on the right, I looked at the change. I looked at a 4-year change. So I had to do some calculation here, but this tells a story. I mean, the schools on the right have made big improvements during those 4 years. Now, as the storyteller, you can decide to do a 3-year change or a 6-year change. You can make some of those decisions. But when I looked at the data in 2 different ways, you can see that people are going to show up differently. And for me, that impact and change is a lot more interesting. The reason I wrote change down here is because I don't know what actions they took at those schools. If they did nothing different over 4 years, then it would just be change. But if they implemented new professional learning, if they implemented trauma-informed training, if they implemented new curriculum, then those would be things that would impact those results. So I'm gonna need a little help here. Josh, if you could help me, maybe put us back in those same groups. We can do this for about 5 minutes. What I wanted you all to think about, and we can do this in our groups, is considering the movies Most Likely to Succeed and the Innovation Playlist, and the book that we talked about earlier today that some of you have read more or less of. Discuss, I wrote pairs here, but we're gonna do it in a whole group. Discuss what other data we could be using other than standardized test scores to measure school success. Sound good? What other data other than standardized tests? So Josh, can you throw us back into those groups?
On my way. You're on your way now.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. Did you drop out of the group?
Here, so I thought I would try to
Go back in again?
drop back in. Can you join breakout room?
Looks like room 2 is going a little bit longer. Should be back in a second here. Lindsay, good to see you.
Nice to be seen.
Here they come. Joel, you're going to reshare your screen.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So in the interest of time, we won't debrief your small groups, but hopefully you had some good conversations. The next section of my presentation I put together, you can actually come and take a look at this afterwards. I'm not going to go through each slide since we're at 8:48 right now, but I put together some slides that talk about how to analyze data, how to look for trends in the data, and how to present the data. I'm big on using infographics and creating infographics, and I'll help you do that for your dashboard because, you know, a picture tells 1,000 words, and there's a lot of value in creating infographics, and they tell nice stories. There are, you know, you're writing a story with this dashboard, and I like to think of that story as just like you would write a regular story with a beginning and a middle and an end. I think the best dashboards and the best data reports have context, and talked about those stars and pluses. If people understand something comparative between what you're sharing with them and some other experience or some other school or change over time, that's the best way for people to really understand your story. So context, I think, is really important. And Anne talked a little bit about the work we did in Nanakuli Waianae. And these are screenshots of the dashboards that we created, the dashboard infographic. We did this for the complex area and for every school. They each have their own 5-page report, 8.5 by 11 inches, that tell a story. And here's what I mean by the way they tell a story. So the reader is kind of taken through that beginning, middle, and end. And I'm going to help you do that with your dashboard. There's data that is part of that story and part of that communicating of the change. We also use text, right? So we did a combination of quantitative and qualitative to tell the story. And then we used graphics to anchor important points for people and help them follow along, right? So you'll see something similar in your dashboards in a couple of minutes. I also briefly wanted to share with you that part of the work I'm going to do this year is create a kind of a dashboard, a big picture dashboard of the IHC program. It'll probably be a couple of pages, or it'll be like a big poster, but these are the kinds of things we're going to look at. We're going to look at participation, right? Which is that some of that process data from the beginning to the end. We're going to look at changes over time from a kind of a leadership development standpoint, right? What did you learn during this year together? What did you learn about your leadership and how have you changed? And then we'll collect data on your school impact projects. Maybe I'll collect data on the focus areas and the % of them that were completed successfully and how many students were impacted. So things like that. So when we finish, IHC will have a dashboard that summarizes this work this year. And as part of that, we want to do a leadership survey now, beginning of the project, and then I'll use similar questions at the end in 6-8 months. And I'm going to look at, from a data perspective, change over time. So to do that, I created a survey that I'm going to ask each of you to complete, and a similar survey that we're going to ask your principals to complete about you as a leader. So in the Google slide presentation, and we can also email this, I'll work with Josh to send you an email. There's 2 survey links, but there's a survey link that'll take you to the survey for you as the IHC participant, where you talk about your strengths as a leader, your skills, things like that. And then we're going to send something similar, like I said, to your principals to ask them about you. And then, like I said, over time, we're going to look for change. So there's no reason to go in there today and try to be glowing that you are a perfect leader and that you've got everything figured out. Now's a great time just to be honest and share where you're at. And then we'll look at change over time. And my hope or my intention would be that if each of you could complete your survey by the end of this week. It's only about 15 minutes. You can do it on a cell phone or a tablet or a laptop or anything. Since it's a Google survey, it's pretty easy, but there's about 30 questions. That should take you about 15 minutes, I think. Okay, last couple of minutes, the SIP dashboard. So each of you is going to do your own dashboard on your improvement project. That dashboard, like I explained earlier, should tell your story. You can use qualitative and quantitative data. I built a template for each of you. And I want you to know that I'm available. I'm in Sacramento, but I'm available by phone, email, Zoom to help you individually or in groups if you need. And what I want to do is I just want to show you, again, where to find them. So here in the IHC network, we created, in the topic section, we created a page for each of you. So I'll click on Ken's. I uploaded a dashboard for each of you. And I tried to match it to your school colors, but we can change that. I'd be happy to help you change that. That's easy to do. And also you can get creative if you want to move outside of this template. But the idea is that you're going to talk about, the input, right? So the baseline data and the challenge you face. This is why we're doing what we're doing. Here are the actions that we take, right? This is that process data that we talked about today. And then on the second page, a little bit of the about, a little bit of information about your school, about you as the leader. You could have links to videos. You can add photos here that tell some of that story. And then some of the data and summary to finish off your dashboard. In terms of doing an infographic dashboard, I threw together a number of common icons that you can use, but I can create other icons for you and help you tell your story if you need an icon that does something different. So colors can change, layout and format can change. I wanted to make it really easy if you're not really creative graphically. I want to make this really easy for you, but you're not constrained to these 2 pages in this exact layout. Each of you has a document that looks just like this in your page here. So Serena's should look different, should have a different color, a little bit different blue. And like I said, I'm available. Should be easy to find me, but I'm available to help you through this. And that's it. At 8:54, I want to stop and make sure that Josh and Robert and Ann have time to finish things up today.
And also that this would be a moment, Joel, if you want to go ahead and stop sharing, that if there are any questions at this point, we want to leave a little bit of time for that.
Thank you, Joel. It's good to see you.
Hi, Jessica.
Jessica can tell you that she worked with Joel for a year, to do the Nanakuli Waianae dashboard. And, I think, Jess, what did you think as you were going through the process? Did it make sense?
Yeah, Joel's great. I loved working with him. We did a lot of mock-ups. We did a lot of brainstorming, process analyzation, and then we did tons and tons of drafts. And then we would only show Anne when we thought we were ready. So we got smarter as the time went on. But no, Joel's super patient, very easy to work with, and just, yeah, it was a fun thing to do.
Thank you. So anyone else have any questions? And not to worry, okay? Because this is a process. There's no right answer to anything. We're gonna learn as we go through this. And hopefully it will be very helpful to you as you move on in working with your own strategic plan at your school, how to look at data and how to actually start to assemble that story. The Nanakuli Waianae dashboards, the infographic dashboards are up at nwcomplex.org. So there's nwcomplex.org, and then you can take a look at what the samples that are there, but we put a lot of information in. It's just an example of what you could think about in terms of different kinds of data and how you want to tell your story of your project, which is kind of a mini version, yeah, because you're addressing one specific area. Okay.
Joel, can I have you share your screen one more time and back into the What School Could Be platform? And this is based on Jorge's question a few minutes ago in the chat. So if you just go to events, right, Joel? So if you go to events and then today's event, if you click on today, the 5th, and then if you scroll down below, Joel, this is where you place the deck, right? Yeah, so there are several links here, Jorge, when you see it, everybody. this is a way to get back to Joel's deck. And there were several slides at the end that were super intriguing, but you had to move through them pretty quickly. So this would be a chance. And
there's also the links right there for the 2 surveys.
got it. Okay, awesome. Thanks, Joel.
Quick question, Joel, will you be sending our principals the survey, or should we forward that to them?
I was going to ask Josh what the best process is for that. I don't, have their contact information, so whatever is the easiest. But I was thinking Josh probably had that contact info.
Yes, I will work with you, Joel.
Okay.
Jorge, I think probably the best bet is that we'll send. These are not individual surveys, right, Joel? This is one survey. So if I send one email to all 10 principals and heads, that would work. Okay.
There's a place for them to identify who it's for.
Yeah. So Jorge, yours would go to Brandy, and then we'll go from there. And I'll try to get this done tomorrow morning.
Perfect.
Okay. So Joel, if you want to stop sharing, and then let me, since we've only got a minute and a half left, let me come back and share my screen one more time. So we've already done this already. And we already took our break. This is Joel's introduction. So this is the last thing here before we're finished today in preparation for the 19th. So again, we've been talking about this for a while, that you'd be working on your first blog and that it would be something that you would discuss with your principal. But now we have Serena and Amy as examples, and you can go into the platform to read theirs and comment on them as well. And also don't forget, Jan Iwase is out there ready to help you. She texted me a message during class today to again let you know that how much she supports you, and she wants to help in any way she can with your blogs. So we're going to be starting in the direction of your draft school impact project. Not all sections need to be completed, but a clear idea needs to emerge. Probably for most of you, that's already happened already. You're continuing your meetings with your executive coaches and your principals and heads. We are going to, again, my mistake on the assigning of the chapters. We're going to be moving on to chapter 2, which is called Tomorrow's World, within part 1. So that's pages 21 through 49. In other words, all of part 1. And connect with your reading buddy. We're going to share that in just a second. And you're going to be coming up with thoughts about the reading and preparing to report it out on the 19th. And that you're thinking about those essential questions that we can ask Stephanie Malia Kraus when she joins us on November 2nd. So just really quick, we have given you reading buddies. This was done through Robert, who introduced me to a software I had no idea existed. It's called Random Team Generator. So we threw your names into it, and this is how it came out. So Denali and Jess, you're a pair. You're reading buddies for making it. Serena and Larissa, you're a pair. Jillian and Kosh, you're a pair. Jorge and Barry, you're a pair. And Amy and Ken, you're a pair. So again, this is just a way for you to work with each other, to share some of the workload. Jillian, I see that you have your hand up. Go for it.
This was actually a question for the school impact drafting.
Okay.
A lot of those questions are marked as required, which means you can't go on to the next section while you're filling it out. And so can we just like put in like placeholders for any?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can literally, I think we mentioned this last time, Jillian, you can say blah, 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 and then just come back to it later because you can edit it an infinite number of times. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so just a little thought with your reading buddy for chapter 2 and also 1 and 2, when you try to think about those essential questions, you have the contact information of each other. So either way you want to connect to set up some time to have a discussion, please do reach out. Remember, we're in the V formation. You guys did so much better today as we were talking about chapter 1 together in a team. So we're hoping this will also help generate some of that relational development as part of a cohort.
Yeah, that's it. Any questions before we close up? We're right at 6:02. I think we're all good. We all good? Everybody, thumbs up. We're not going to do round the horn tonight. The day is done. Time for supper and and a scotch, as far as I'm concerned. Joel, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. And we will be in touch.
Appreciate
I'll
the
text
others,
you.
the principals and the EC that joined us, Lindsay and Melissa, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Bye, everybody. Thank you very much. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.
Aloha.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you,
Um,
Jillian.
Sorry, I'm
Question?
gonna just let you know this. I don't know if I'm the only one, but I just went to look at my data dashboard and I didn't have access to it. So I don't know if you want to just let Joel know that I'm not sure if he